Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix's 435th film from 2021. It's the slasher film called There's Someone Inside Your House. This is directed by Patrick Brice and stars Sydney Park, Theodore Pellerin, Asjha Cooper, LaTourette and Diego Josef. I am Jesse. I'm your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, if this is a film that you haven't seen yet and you are interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we will spoil the film as we go throughout this episode. And as always, we do start the show off with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one's about a killer on the loose, making people pay for their sins. Interesting one for me. Maybe didn't give enough away, but we will find out some more as we look into how this ended up on Netflix. And Netflix's little tagline for this film was, "Everyone has a secret to die for." That ties in nicely with my Fast Flicks. But then when you're on Netflix and you read the little summary of what's on Netflix about the film. So the first one on their menu page on Netflix, it says, "A killer targeting teens exposes their deepest secrets." In this thriller from the minds of James Wan, The Conjuring, and Sean Levy from Stranger Things. There you go. So a little bit of further context there. And then as you start watching the film on Netflix, it says, "McCartney and her friends at Osborne High School try to identify and stop a masked killer who's targeting students and exposing their biggest secrets." There you go. So if this sounds like a film for you, give it a crack. Around the world, the other translations, I guess, in Portuguese, it's called "Is There Someone in Your House?" It's with a question mark, so is there? I'm not sure. In French, it's called "Killer Game." Yes, this is a bit of a game for the killer. In Danish, it's called "When No One Hears Your Scream." Interesting. In Japanese, it's called "Someone Inside." Interesting. In Chinese, it's called "There's Someone in Your Room," as well as "Weird Invasion." There we go. All right, so this is an adaptation of a 2017 novel of the same name by Stephanie Perkins, and apparently is a best-selling young adult fiction novel. The project of the film was announced in March of 2018 when Deadline Hollywood revealed that Netflix had partnered with Sean Levy and James Wan to produce the film under their Atomic Monster and 21 Laps companies. The screenplay was adapted by Henry Gayden. At the time, the film was described as an amalgamation of genres in the vein of quintessential slashers like Friday the 13th and Scream, as well as coming-of-age dramas like John Hughes' The Breakfast Club and George Lucas's American Graffiti. In March of 2019, it was announced that Patrick Brice would direct the film, and in August of 2019, most of the principal cast were announced. Principal photography began in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada on August the 22nd, 2019, and finished on October the 12th, 2019. Some additional photography for the film was done on August the 23rd, 2020. The film premiered at the Fantastic Fest on September 23rd, 2021, and it was initially expected to be released prior to this on Netflix in February of 2021, but was delayed. So Netflix announced in August of 2021 that it would be released on October 6th, and that way could have its debut or its premiere at the Fantastic Fest. This film does include a few poems. There we go. So one of the poems that's read out by McCartney at the graduation ceremony. It's actually written by a girl called Sarah Teasdale, and it's titled Embers, and it was first published in a book called Love Songs back in 1917. And then there's another poem that she recites to a guy called Ollie, and that's called Let It Be Forgotten. And this was also written by Sarah Teasdale and published back in 1920 in a collection called In Flame and Shadow. We go to 2021 with an interview with Rue Morgue. Patrick Brice the director. He spoke about his approach to shooting the film and the overall influence of the slasher subgenre. He said, I was thinking about 1980s slashers as much just because they were films that I was not allowed to watch as I was growing up. It was really the late 90s, early 2000s ones that I went to see in movie theaters, a lot of them on opening day as they came out. There's definitely a spiritual sort of through line between those films and ours. But in terms of the way There's Someone Inside Your House looks, I was just excited to be able to take a more classical approach to styling the movie. I'd never had a chance or had the time or the money to be able to craft a film visually in the way we were able to with this one. I worked a lot with the DP, Jeff Cutter, in terms of thinking about what lenses we were going to use and what the look was going to be. And it was thrilling to be able to craft the movie in a way that spoke to solving the problems of this individual project, as opposed to feeling like I had to throw in specific visual references to these other films that you're talking about. There we go, nice little quote from the director there. All right, we spoke about when this released, the 6th of October 2021 on Netflix worldwide, filmed in Canada. It was nominated at the UBCP ACTRA Awards in Vancouver for Best Supporting Performance for a male for Markian Tarasuk. There we go. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, sits at 47%. That's on 59 reviews. That is rotten, unfortunately. We go to the audience, even lower, sits at 20%. That's on more than 250 ratings, so that's a little bit sad. IMDb, 4.9 out of 10 on 23,000 ratings, so again, on that low side, as well as Letterboxd, where it sits at a 2.2 out of 5 on nearly 81,000 ratings, but it's been logged by 101,000 people, so there's some eyeballs on this film. Metacritic, where the critics rate the film and audiences on a scale using traffic lights of red, yellow, and green, red being really bad. Metacritic, the critics 45 out of 100 on 12 reviews, that's yellow, that's in the middle, but the audience sits at a 3.6 out of 10 on 36 reviews, which puts that in the red category. So you would have to say this film has a little bit of negative connotations around it from critics and audiences. But you're waiting for my early thoughts. What are my thoughts on this film? Look, I had no expectations for this, and I thought it was really good fun. I was engaged. I was interested in how it played out. It felt a little bit fresh, even though it does the same thing every sort of slasher film does. And there's some things in it that I thought were really good. So I enjoyed this. I'm going to be positive as we go throughout. So the director, Patrick Brice, 11 directing credits, all look to be in this horror slasher sort of genre. Let's talk about the characters in this one. There are so many characters. I'm only going to touch on a few of the main ones that we see throughout this slasher film, because some of the ones are just there to be killed. But I guess I've got to talk about Makani, who is the main character of this film. I guess she's the main character, and in making her the main character, as an audience member, I never felt any fear that she wasn't going to make it through to the end of the film. She lives with her grandma. She's got some dark secret that she wants to keep from her friends because she's moved from Hawaii to Nebraska. She likes poetry. That's her. And I guess we've got to talk about Ollie, her lover, or she'd been ex-boyfriend possibly, but she reconnects with throughout this film. And this guy, he smokes pretty hard. And Makani, she wants to keep their connection a secret from everyone at school because all of her friends think he's a bit weird and a bit on the outside. So that's where he stands in this one. He's got a bit of a tragic backstory of his parents dying, and that makes him an outsider, I guess. Alex is Makani's best friend, who is apparently, she's referred to as the bitch in residence, but there's nothing really developed into this, to be honest. Darby is this character that's there for representation, which I thought was really poorly done, just put there for the sake of it, without giving the character a proper storyline. So I wasn't a big fan of that. Rodrigo is, I guess, a love interest for Alex, and he likes her back in return. Again, another type of representation, but he has an addiction to pain medication, so that makes him not a good person, which felt a bit weird. Maybe he could do with some help. Zach is this rich kid whose dad is public enemy number one. He's buying up property and everyone hates him, and I guess Zach hates his dad as well, so maybe that gives some motive behind some actions in this film. And then again, Caleb's this gay footballer, just a stereotype there as well, to go against the grain, and Katie as well. She's this blonde bimbo, horrible human of a student council president, and there we go. They're the characters. This film, you don't watch it for a connection to the characters realistically. You watch it to see some tense moments and who's going to survive, and possibly some graphic kills throughout. Let's talk about the scenes. What are some scenes that stood out? What are some scenes that didn't work for me? So the ones that worked, I thought the opening scene of this guy in a house walking through on the phone to his mate before he gets killed. There's some really good little one-liners on the phone about like pure protein and why would I want it to leave my body. Just bang after bang on this phone call. I thought that was really good. This Macon guy does a speech about this dead guy from the start, and he just starts singing in front of all the school in the yard. I thought that was quite funny. Katie's speech in the cafeteria, just being so tone deaf, and then finishes on a prayer. I thought that was quite funny. Makani, she almost gets bullied by being called Moana. I thought that was quite funny and a clever little line. Katie, she gets killed in this church. There's slashes, there's stabbings. They're all done really well, especially she goes into the confessional and the stabs are going through the wall, and it's like she's seeing the light. I thought that was shot really well. Makani and Ollie, they go to this party at Zach's place, And it's just a lot of good little side dialogue as they walk through this party, these little conversations of everyone they passed. That was well done. The friends, they're going through this cornfield at the end that's on fire, and there's just dead kids everywhere. I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. And Zach killing his dad, a funny death, and then he complains about how hard it was to make all the masks. Thought it was a good little tantrum. All right, things that didn't work. Makani's grandmother, just the fact that she sleepwalks and she needed to go to a sleep institute, literally plot-wise, so Makani could be home alone. I don't know, that was just too, I don't know, just, I didn't like it. The friends, they all lie around looking at the stars in the sky, thinking about Rodrigo and his death. I thought that was super lame. The cornfield's on fire, and they all talk about Ollie's car, how bad it is, how old it is, and they're like, so we're going to drive it through the fire to save, let's save the football team. What a bad line. And then finally, the graduation poem scene at the end, just a lame finish to what I thought was a decent film. But let's talk about, what's the film saying? What's some themes, some ideas? It touches on a whole bunch of stuff that, I guess, in what it is to be a teenager. There's sport, there's parties, there's town traditions, even if one of these is a Halloween corn maze. But there's big focus on mobile phones or cell phones and viral messages and things like racism and privilege and classism and fake personas are all touched on, especially through that idea of hiding secrets too, about the importance of being honest with yourself and this motif, I guess, of everyone wearing masks, even if they are 3D printed ones too. And you shouldn't judge people based on their past too, and forgiveness is important. Makani burnt the living daylights out of a girl, but we all make mistakes. There we go. Some pondering, some thoughts, some questions. Like, my one question or my one takeaway from this one is how on earth did this film get away with this big scene with Nazi memorabilia, this collection that Zach's father's got, and then Zach turning them all into marijuana smoking machines? It felt a bit tone deaf. I don't know. It felt a bit awkward watching that scene. I'm not sure it landed how they wanted it to land, or whether they thought it would be funny. It wasn't funny. Some other questions, some thoughts, some ideas. The masks, the actual 3D printed masks that the killer walks around with. Surely they could have done a better job of making them actually look like the victim, because through the dialogue they play it up that the mask's supposed to look like the victim. I don't know. I don't think that landed very well. Obviously, the idea that hazing, it's bad. Like, why does hazing still exist? Especially some, I think there's multiple versions of hazing here. One where Makani has to do it in Hawaii, as well as the opening scene. I don't know. Hazing, that seems a very American thing, so I'm not sure why that still exists. Rodrigo, played by Diego Josef. I just had to highlight that he lights up the screen. He's a bit of a babe, that guy. Well done. That was a good casting call. And I think there was a line, Makani says or asks Ollie, she's like, who even smokes anymore? I thought, like, great question. Who does? It's too expensive, especially in Australia. But I thought that was a good little question too. Dave, the Uber driver, he appears in a couple of scenes. He's out the front of the police station. He gives Makani a lift out in the middle of a cornfield. Just like a very poor red herring that didn't lead to anything. And then finally, the kids at the end, they're in this car in the cornfield. I mentioned on this before, and the cornfield's on fire, and they're driving through this cornfield to clear some space so people can escape the fire. It just didn't make sense character-wise. Like, surely the carload of kids get out. They just leave the driver in there, so in case the car does explode, they don't all die. It's like a death wish. I thought that was very interesting. Other than that, I am ready to wrap this one up. We give the film a rating out of 5 on this show. For me, it's fun. It's watchable. It's interesting. It's not too lame. I think if you like slasher type films, you're probably going to enjoy it. It's worth a watch. Get on board. It's fun. 3 out of 5 for me. Solid score. We're on socials. We have Facebook. We have Instagram. And we have X, formerly known as Twitter. Give us a follow. Give us a like if you can. The question that I wanted to ask in relation to this episode is the idea about, have you ever worried about an intruder being in your home? Obviously, that plays in with this title. And most of the victims, I mean, not all of them, but most of them get chased down in their actual house. I think most people would have had a dream at some stage where they're worried someone's in their house. I just think that's such an interesting question and such a psych-filled thing. Other than that, we are back next week. Next week, we have an international film from 2021. It's a Turkish thriller called Grudge, or in Turkish, it's called Kin. This one's directed by Turkan Dera and stars Yilmaz Erdogan and Sem Yigit Yüzmugulu. There we go. Apologies for pronunciations there, but I'll get into it for next week. Hope you will too. As always, thanks for joining me this week, and I'll see you then.